emerging economies, notably China. What do I mean by this? That the change in China is not a 1 quarter thing or 1/2 of 1 year thing in terms of the fact that they will be buying less copper, less iron ore, or whatever. It is basically a very important change in the whole productive model of China, which now has become almost a cliche, especially to you all who are trade specialists, much less based on trade and investment than on consumption and services. However, of course, this is also having an impact here, and it also suggests that some of these issues may not be corrected by the pickup of the cycle next time. Now, the accumulation of new trade restrictive measures introduced over the past 8 years is also weighing heavily on trade flows. Rapid advances in technology have catalyzed new constraints to trade in the forms of measures restricting the flow of data across borders. The threat of protectionism is looming large, especially the murky type, the behind-the-border type, where there's much less capacity to observe, measure, compare, benchmark, etc. And trade is also facing strong headwinds from a skeptical public. In a way, dear friends, we have to become all campaigners, and we all have to become perhaps a little bit more noisy and a little bit more convincing and strong in our messages. The benefits of open markets tend to be longer term, they are more diffused, and because they benefit the many, typically you have that phenomenon where the many are kind of the silent majority that never come out and express themselves loudly in favor, whereas the ones that are against are the vested interests that feel affected, and they are better organized, and they come out very strongly and make very noisy statements. But closed factories and lost jobs, whether they are due to trade or other factors like technological change, are felt immediately. They're felt locally. And then in political campaigns and things, you can always say about one factory in one place, in one county, in one little town that depended on that particular company that then moved on elsewhere, and then that becomes, the face of a broader state. So it is easier to attack free trade than it is to defend it. The public debate can be frustratingly short-sighted, risks raising support for protectionist measures. So what can we do? We're friends of trade. We've got to go out there and fight the good fight. Encouraging implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement is one of the steps we have to take. And one, I think, today, given the options that we have, that is particularly important and one that is clearly in the right direction. We estimate that the Trade Facilitation Agreement could, if fully implemented, could cut trade costs from between 10 to over 17%. And this is percentages in terms of total trade, depending on a country's level of development. And I have to say that the 15s and the 16s and 17% are really accruing to the benefit of the least developed countries. Whereas already the most developed countries are, more transparent, have less protectionism built into the systems, or they are bound by rules like the EU, and therefore they do not do so many of the murky, behind-the-border type of practices. We should also step up our collective pressure for governments to ratify and implement the Expanded Information Technology Agreement and push for the expedient conclusion of TISA on the services and the Environmental Goods Agreement negotiations, which seem to have a good ambiance around them, but of course still have to gel. So we've finished the ITA, and we have to go for TISA and then go for the EGA. Now, the Trans-Pacific Partnership offers another important opportunity to boost market opening and growth. The rapid advancement of agreements like the TPP and others on environmental goods, information technology, they are essential if the international architecture is to catch up with new technologies and business models emerging from the digital economy. And these emerging areas also call for strengthened international regulatory cooperation and coordination. Above all, we must turn the tide of public skepticism about the benefits of trade. This is not an issue in which we should allow the discussion to go uninformed or for people to use their intuition. This is not just about myth-busting facts. It goes deeper. It's about providing adequate support for those adversely affected for trade. That means you really have to say, yes, there are some people who are affected. Yes, we recognize that although this is for the public good, there are small targeted groups that may be affected in some sectors. And yes, we have to focus our support to help them to overcome the transition. An unemployed steel worker does not take much comfort from knowing that programmers in Silicon Valley are thriving. Or that t-shirts and smartphones are cheaper. What he or she needs is a job, a decent job, and or new training or skills in order to be able to be eligible for a decent job, and a robust social safety net to help get through the transition.